for sex.
This test is designed to measure what you're sexually interested in.
How this prominent lawyer reacts to these images could change his life forever. He thought he had the perfect life until he was thrown in jail. How far will the father go to prove he's innocent? John Quinones with the moment of truth. Our cameras rolling and everything at stake. From ABC News, this is Primetime Thursday with Diane Sawyer and Charles Gibson.
Good evening and welcome to an all-new edition of Primetime Thursday.
And so we ask tonight, what would drive a person to take publicly the most personal and risky test most people could imagine? A test that quite literally measures the nature and kind of your sexual response. Well, you're about to meet a father who will do just that. Put it all on the line with the custody of his 4 children at stake and everything seemingly against him. Here's John Quinones with a look at this extraordinary new world in American justice.
It may be the strangest test you'll ever witness, a kind of sexual lie detector. This man is wired to a device that measures what arouses him sexually and what does not.
And you'll see he's putting the earpieces in.
He's hearing and seeing explicit sexual images.
And this is the picture he's looking at.
That's correct.
How he reacts over the next 2 hours, if he reacts at all, could mean the difference between freedom and jail. How did Bruce McLaughlin's life ever come to this? Here's the story. You be the judge. Snapshots of the dad he once was.
I am holding one of the most beautiful girls in the world.
Bruce McLaughlin, successful attorney, dedicated father of 4, 2 boys and 2 girls.
What do you think about your dad?
He's special.
Bruce's brother, Mark, and mother, Virginia.
I was amazed at the closeness that he had with his children.
We're a small family, but we're extremely close. We always spent the holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, most always birthdays.
McLaughlin met his wife, Robin, playing softball, a striking young blonde from New Zealand.
He just seemed, very charming, intelligent. He had traveled the world with his family, so there are a lot of things that made him very interesting.
But sometime during their 16 years of marriage, a dramatic change of heart. Robin would do everything possible to send her husband to jail.
This took me absolutely by surprise. Blindsided me like a freight train.
When we first met Bruce McLaughlin a year ago, he had already spent 4.5 years in prison. Though he admits he hadn't been a perfect husband, McLaughlin insists he never did anything to deserve this.
I wouldn't wish this on anybody.
We've seen the wedding pictures. And then a handsome young man, a beautiful young woman. You expected the best?
I did. But for example, I never saw his temper before we got married. I didn't know there was another side to Bruce.
A dark side, she says, that soon started to emerge.
He would throw you?
Throw me across a room in front of my children, our children. And one time in front of the children, he actually got me up and threw me up against a glass door with my feet off the ground.
It was a fight at home one night, almost 7 years ago.
The last straw was when I ended up in the emergency room. That was the last straw.
Robin goes to the hospital with a twisted arm. Bruce McLaughlin is arrested, charged with assault, and barred from the family home. He argues that abuse in the home is mutual. Later, the charges are dropped. But Robin files for divorce. Custody of the children immediately becomes an issue.
We were actually on the road to recovery, I thought.
McLaughlin is desperate. To prove he could be a better, more honest husband, he comes clean to Robin. In a letter to her, he reveals a secret, that years before, he had cheated on her.
It wasn't really a big surprise, but of course when you do see it in writing, it is still a shock.
Your reaction was anger?
Of course, yes.
The confession ends any chance of reconciliation. In fact, 2 years later, in the heat of the custody battle, Robin drops a bomb. In shock, Bruce calls his brother.
Bruce said that he felt his wife was going to trying to have him arrested for sexual abuse to his children.
This time, he's charged with 26 counts of child sexual abuse. One by one, the kids are questioned by this woman, Leesburg, Virginia Police Detective Christina Lay.
Now, when you say he came from behind, tell me what would happen when he would come from behind. Well, he would get behind me and then he'd pull his pants down.
Did he ever seem like a man who was capable of sexually abusing his own kids?
I didn't think so.
So it's disbelief, I guess. Huh?
Utter disbelief. I can't even put it into words how you feel.
Bruce McLaughlin has always said he's innocent, wrongly accused. But in court, the strongest testimony comes from his own children. So dramatic, so convincing, a jury convicts. McLaughlin is sentenced to 13 years in jail.
I'm a man who will be jailed for the rest of my useful life. And I may not get the opportunity to see those children again. I may not be able to see the light of day again.
I'm saying that something's not right here.
McLaughlin hires Alex Levay to appeal his case.
I don't see how you...
One of the first things he discovers are notes the McLaughlin children actually had in their possession during that questioning by Leesburg police. The notes were prepared with the help of their mother, Robin.
What was the piece of paper from? Well, my mom said to write down all the things that he did to me. Okay. What did she say? Did she tell you what to write? No, sometimes I thought of it, sometimes she thought of it.
It does raise the question, did you concoct these stories of sexual abuse on your children by your husband?
No.
Bruce McLaughlin's attorney also learns that throughout this ordeal, Robin McLaughlin is sending faxes to this man, Martin Sayer, her evangelical pastor. Perhaps most revealing is this fax, where Robin writes to Sayer, "Of course, Satan's voice is trying to tell me that I've put the children up to this, but thank God that the Holy Spirit has a louder voice."
When I read that line, I was like, is this woman questioning herself? Does she feel guilty about what she did?
But thank God that the Holy Spirit has a louder voice. What did you mean by that?
Well, John, I don't know if you're a praying man or not, but when you pray and you expect answers, and as I prayed about this, I just felt very strongly that it had happened.
It may sound like you were trying to confess here that perhaps you made this up.
I would never do that.
You know, it's hard for a child to say, well, mom's wrong, God's wrong, the pastor's wrong.
Levay also questions Dr. Stanton Saminow, a court-appointed psychologist who evaluated the McLaughlin children.
Well, Bruce McLaughlin was not without problems of his own. In other words, he could be difficult. He could be quite controlling.
But Saminow also says,
well, I've never encountered a case where a parent has abused both male and female offspring, much less all the kids in his family.
It all raises enough questions to get Bruce McLaughlin a new trial.
It was very well suggested that the mother was coaxing the children.
Jury member Elizabeth Ellison.
And they seemed somewhat confused. And they kept reverting back, well, Mom remembers. You know, I don't think they lied or anything. They just don't remember. And the reason why I feel they didn't remember, because maybe it didn't happen.
Juror Daniel Mano.
They just use God as a tool to make it believable. It's a pretty powerful tool.
And so, last December, a jury announces a new verdict.
What goes through your mind when the second jury comes back and says, not guilty?
When I first heard the verdict, it was horror, disbelief.
Oh, it feels absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
But the McLaughlin story is far from over, which is why, though he's now out of jail, Bruce McLaughlin decides this test is the only real way to prove his guilt or innocence.
Out of jail, but not home free, the most intimate and controversial test is yet to come.
You're seeing a general increase. That is a response.
A TV first, when Primetime continues.
For Bruce McLaughlin, it's now all or nothing. He's just spent 4.5 years in prison. New evidence freed him, but it could be the test he takes in front of our cameras that will remove all doubts. More now with John Quinones.
After his acquittal, Bruce McLaughlin is granted limited visitation with his kids on weekends and only with adult supervision.
No way!
This is home video of him with the kids just last Christmas.
Santa came last night.
Then, 2 months later, another bombshell. One of the McLaughlin's twin daughters comes forward with a new allegation.
Here's what we know. In March, Robin McLaughlin seeks a child protection order after Bruce takes the kids snowboarding in the mountains. She accuses him of fondling one of the girls while she sat in her father's lap during the drive home. Bruce says no, that his wife is once again putting ideas in their daughter's head. There were 8 people packed in that SUV, his 3 other kids, their grandmother, and 2 family friends.
Did you fondle your daughter?
Absolutely not. This is just another attempt to alienate me from the children. And this process seems to never end.
Desperate to make it end, Bruce McLaughlin volunteers to undergo a grueling 10 hours of controversial psychosexual tests to prove that he is not in any way interested in sex with children.
I feel confident that the results will show that I'm in fact a normal guy.
And that you will be exonerated.
Yes, sir.
McLaughlin has hired forensic legal consultant Dean Tong, a father's rights advocate, to set up the test for him here in Boston.
How reliable is the science, these tests of today?
Well, they have about a 95 to 98% degree of specificity and sensitivity, so they're about as reliable as science as we have out there.
You'll be seated here.
Tong's expert is Dr. Joseph Plaud, a clinical psychologist who's interviewed hundreds of alleged sexual offenders in and out of prison.
Bruce, this test is designed to measure what you're sexually interested in.
What if Mr. McLaughlin is aroused by these images he sees? What if the test comes back and says he's capable of molesting children? What will you do?
Then, Houston, we have a problem. Make no mistake about it. I'm not, and this is not a how to get off child abuse defense team. If you did it, you're going down.
And the most private and controversial test is yet to come.
Mr. McLaughlin will attach a gauge to his penis.
It's called the penile plethysmograph, or PPG.
It measures the change in circumference of the penis when a person hears and sees sexually explicit material.
While the PPG does not measure culpability, it does measure propensity or sexual interest. So if the scenes and images McLaughlin sees and hears arouse him, the PPG will show it. The moment of truth.
He's putting the goggles on, which will project the visual image.
McLaughlin is alone with our cameras. We monitor them from the next room. For the next 90 minutes, he's shown images of adults and children and hears descriptions of explicit sex acts with them.
And this is the picture he's looking at.
That's correct. And you'll see here how what it's labeled, exhibiting himself to an adult female.
He would be exposing himself to her?
That's right.
Moments later, Bruce is shown an image of a young girl.
He's still at or near the baseline.
That's correct.
And it shows, so no arousal.
That's correct.
Could he somehow trick the PPG? Experts say no. Men are hardwired and cannot turn on and turn off. They can't hide what arouses them. Bruce has shown another image.
This depicts the rape of a young girl.
And suddenly we notice something else. He flinches and seems emotionally distressed. Listen closely.
This is a young girl. This is just a little young girl.
This child would be in the 8 to 10-year-old range.
Roughly the same age as Bruce's own twin daughters.
And so far the response?
he's not showing any response.
While he appears to be agitated by what he's looking at, that's about to change.
Trial lovemaking with an adult woman.
That's correct. Well, you're seeing a little bit of a response right away there. That is what you want to see on a plethysmographic chart.
So he's clearly not turning off all his responses.
He's very sexually engaged in that.
In fact, during the entire 90 minutes we observe Bruce McLaughlin, the only time he's ever aroused is during male-female encounters between consenting adults.
With women?
With adult females.
But more importantly, what about his arousal with children?
It was a relative aversion. He's in the minus.
And finally, perhaps the most telling images. He's now looking at pictures of his own twin daughters, and he's asked to imagine raping them. His arousal response measures in the minus.
I do have the data, and they are uniformly positive and very strong, supporting the fact that you have exclusive sexual arousal to adult females in consenting sexual activity.
So what does this story and these tests tell us about Bruce McLaughlin, his wife, and their kids?
Maybe these test results will show her, to some extent, that it's better to back off. It's better to accept the fact that maybe the children were never abused.
But Robin McLaughlin still insists they were abused.
He is guilty of sexually abusing his 4 children.
Dangerous?
Yes, dangerous.
Are you a tomboy?
I am a tomboy.
You want full custody?
Maybe it's in the children's best interest to live with their father.
This past month, Child Protective Services in Maryland ruled out abuse charges against Bruce McLaughlin. He believes the test you just saw helped his case. But just last week, according to Robin McLaughlin, one of Bruce's daughters told her therapist that he touched her inappropriately during a football game. Bruce McLaughlin says once again, he has been wrongly accused.
A race against time.